Yes, it's time for The World This Week, 7 days, for Paris-based correspondents, 1 hour. We welcome Régis Le Sommier of Paris Match magazine. How are you, sir?
Very good.
Also with us, Time magazine's Vivian Walt, reporter Craig Capitas, author of Bear Hunting with the Politburo. How are you, sir? And Harold Hyman of French all-news channel BFM TV. Welcome. The World This Week, where you can always weigh in on the conversation on Facebook throughout the week, and Twitter. You can find us at François F24. After an intense two-round French presidential election that saw the incumbent booted from office, this week, well, it was time to hit the pause button on acrimony. The outgoing conservative Nicolas Sarkozy, standing alongside incoming socialist François Hollande, commemorations for VE Day, May the 8th, 1945, the Nazi surrender that marked the end of World War II. With the inauguration and handover next Tuesday, this week has been a chance for Hollande to catch his breath.
For now, it's the best part of my mandate. I go around, I'm waiting for next Tuesday for the handover of power. People seem happy. In fact, when I see the number of people greeting me, I wonder how I only got 51.6% of the vote.
All right, Harold Hyman, that was at his goodbye for the regional council, where he's leaving, of course, to go on to bigger duties. François Hollande, a sense of irony there, which we haven't always seen on the campaign trail about the task that awaits.
It's dangerous to play with that, because Sarkozy played with that so much, it did him in. Because Hollande is considerably more sober. He's, in fact, very unfunny generally, although he's a very nice guy when you meet him. And Sarkozy's a snark, so he shouldn't be switching roles like that. It's not a good thing.
Do you agree with that, Régis?
Well, I think I've seen this week that there's a book about Hollande joke that was already printed. So, I mean, he's not funny, but he's supposed to be funny, I mean, privately. So
supposed to be funny.
Yes. No, he actually is. I mean, everybody who's met with him, like on casual conversation, have said that he, has a great sense of humor.
And he looks like Kalouche. So
well, yeah. Kalouche would have more of a. He's more of a big enjoying life type of person. Kalouche, if you study his sense of humor, was much more corrosive. And so I wouldn't say...
The guy isn't president yet. Let's give him a few more days.
Kalouche tried to run for president at one point, if you remember.
Vivian Walt, it is a short transition period, 9 days before the inauguration. Do you feel like you're getting reacquainted with this guy who's been... French people know him because he's been a mainstay of politics for decades, but we're not used to quite yet hearing the words President Hollande.
Well, it is very strange. I mean, to the outside world, to Americans, for example, he came across as a kind of party apparatchik. And in fact, he sort of stepped into the role as that. But I think the phrase, this is the best part of my mandate, is incredibly truthful. In fact, when I was watching the party in the Place de la Bastille, I thought, I hope he's really enjoying it, because from now on, it's just one enormous headache. And I think we'll see a much more stressed out, a very different personality than we've seen until now. Until now, we've seen this very kind of easygoing, really kind of almost a relief after Sarkozy.
All right, and of course, François Hollande's victory last Sunday, naturally the cover story for all of the news weeklies. And hey, Régis Le Sommier, what's one of your staff members doing on the cover of Paris Match?
Yes, I mean, well, it's not a secret or not anything. We have a first lady in Paris Match. That's true. Yeah.
She's first. Would you say first lady or first partner? Because Valérie Trierweiler, journalist at Paris Match, is not married to François Hollande.
It's complicated, yes. She's not married to him. She's divorced. He was not married. He's separated from the wife, the mother of his children. So
Who ran for president last time.
So she has they both have kids who can say, I saw my mother lose 5 years ago, and now I see my father win this time. So it's it's a kind of unique. I've seen, I've read stuff in the press. I mean, I think the Maureen Dode op-ed in the New York Times was absolutely incredible, called Amour and Désamour. It's about Sarkozy, State of Union, and Hollande, own, private life, and I think the Americans and a lot of people I see are looking at us as we have a weird way of looking at things, or more. I mean, I wouldn't say French don't care, but they may be a little more easygoing than other nations about these kind of stuff. But I don't think it changes the fact that it's kind of a complicated.
The big difference is that in the U.S. they say that if a woman can't trust her husband, how can a country trust that man to be in office? And that's something you never hear, ever. It's more like if the husband can have 2 or 3 mistresses, imagine the great things he can do, because he's a very artful guy.
It seems to me also like her role, being a partner, not a wife, really kind of challenges the whole notion of what is this French First Lady role. I mean, it's really been evolving in recent years.
It means absolutely nothing.
It means nothing, but I'm not sure she's going to be happy with that.
I hope the president-to-be Hollande is as good with arithmetic as he appears to be with women, because he's got a lot of splaining to do as soon as he gets to the Élysée Palace.
All right, but enjoy the moment, Craig. Hollande, who celebrated with Trévellère
don't be grumpy
on
right
stage
now.
after his
85%. The debt of this country is 85% of its gross domestic product.
Well, I don't think he denies it. He said,
No, he's
the best
saying it's
part of my
probably
mandate.
more.
But all right, Craig Capitis, when you see him on stage with Trévellère after his acceptance speech, and you hear the strains of Edith Piaf's La Vie en Rose playing on the accordion in the background, after the, how should we say, colorful private life that Régis Le Sommier has just described, at least it makes for easy copy to write.
It makes for easy copy, and we should all go out to a ganguette on the Marne River, and we'll do a little dancing with him, and papati papata. I think what Harold pointed out before, when you started out, was prescient. Don't let this guy turn into a Sarkozy. And this kind of talk about whether it's the first wife or the first partner or the first poodle or whatever it is, gets away some very, very serious things that presumptive President Hollande has to deal with immediately, and it's serious.
And when you say immediately, you mean it next Tuesday, 10 a.m., the swearing in of François Hollande as president of France. His day, though, will end in Berlin. He'll meet Angela Merkel. Forget politics as the art of seduction. The Economist already depicting, even though he's not yet president, Hollande and Merkel as an old married couple, as you can see in that cartoon. And the week began with the Chancellor ruling out a rewrite of Europe's fiscal pact, and the week concluded with Merkel effectively repeating that opening gambit.
Growth through structural reform is important and necessary. Growth through debt would throw us back to the beginning of the crisis. And that's why we haven't done it, and that's why we won't do it.
All right, so Angela Merkel sticking to the script when it comes to austerity and belt-tightening first. But Régis Le Sommier, again, that's a gambit ahead of that meeting. Is the momentum perhaps this time in favor of the French, what with the results coming from the ballot box there and also coming from the ballot box in local elections in Germany?
Well, it's going to be a big struggle, I guess. And there's no doubt about it that the Germans, and then again, that the Germans have pointed out that they took the measure that the French should have taken a long time ago under Schröder, which was interesting, who was a socialist, and they've taken, they're now in a position of strength. Now France and especially Hollande wants of course to restart growth in the European Union and say that there won't be any improvement of the situation if we don't renegotiate. So it's going to be a tough battle between the two. And I don't think that, I mean, it has been said that Merkel, of course, she stepped in during the campaign saying that she would have liked Sarkozy to win. But I don't think, I think they have much more in common than that. I mean, I think, it's been said that Hollande and her won't get along together. I don't think so. I think, they both, Merkel is a strong woman, but she knows how to understand that the partnership with France needs to be strong and needs to remain as such. And that with what's happening in Greece, and especially with Spain, we really need to work together very closely.
Harold Hyman, the leader of the Socialists in Parliament, Jean-Marc Ayrault, is now being tipped as the next prime minister. And one of his main attributes is he speaks German.
Well, he's one of the few, but it's a good thing. Most of the Germans around Angela Merkel actually speak French, so it's not, as I learned today, it's not such a big deal. I think the bigger question for me is, in history, the fact that do you, when you get elected, just wipe out all the treaties your predecessor signed because you didn't agree with them? And he's going to have a lot of trouble with that.
But he hasn't said he'll do that. He said he would tack on a growth clause to the.
Well, either you do you remove the kist, or you plop on a sort of une prothèse. What do you call that? A piece of rubber onto it. But in either case, for NATO, Afghanistan, and for the European questions, he will create a lot of bad blood if he just wipes the slate clean. It's terribly irresponsible for one of the two giants of Europe to do that.
Your prediction on this?
It seems to me that NATO is a much simpler issue, and I think he would have most of France behind him, and really what he's doing is accelerating a timetable rather than ripping up something. Clearly the Afghan campaign is on the wane, and he would be fairly safe to carry through with that kind of campaign promise. He'll have some massaging to do with Obama, clearly. But in terms of the growth pact, I think that it seems to me like there's going to have to be some give on both sides, on the German side and on the French side. They both need each other. Neither side wants total political instability. And they're going to have to work out some compromise solution.
And this week we saw the German finance minister talk up the concept of increased spending at home. The Economist, we mentioned earlier in its lead editorial, calling on the French to tighten their belts, on the Germans to boost domestic spending, and on Italian voters to refrain from butchering Mario Monti's reform like some dreadful joke. The euro needs French reform, German extravagance, and Italian political maturity, writes the newspaper. Craig Capitas, are we going to see a different sort of consensus emerge from the next couple of weeks and months?
You are going to see a wrestling match. There's many ways to parse this whole argument, but the wrestling match is going to be based on the fact that 55% of the GDP of France is generated by public spending, which is the largest in Europe. That in broad brushstrokes is Keynesian giveaway economics. There's nothing wrong with Keynesian economics. There's nothing wrong with a soupçon of Milton Friedman, more conservative economics. The way the markets and economists and politicians have classically looked at this is we've got to take a little bit from column 1 and a little bit from column B and see if we can make it work. But when you have 55% of your GDP and growing coming out of the public sector, being generated by public spending, you have a problem. And this is the fine nut of future President Hollande's problem. How is he going to make this balance? And I certainly don't know how he's going to do it, because the public is calling for more public spending, which is understandable. I mean, you can completely understand that. But again, the math doesn't work. Otherwise, if he keeps up with the Keynesian side, you're going to see that cascade effect from Greece coming in here a lot quicker than you think.
But I mean, the public wants it, but there's a lack of memory. We went through this with Mitterrand from 81 to 83.
Precisely.
Who remembers the carnet de sortie de devises, how do you call it?
Harold, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, I was
but
already a
important.
grown boy.
But there's not, and that nobody's suggesting that they're going
You needed
to. Nobody's suggesting we're going to return to those days.
I am, because same sort of speech is going through their head. They did forced hiring in big companies. I went to big companies. They said can't hire. We filled up our contingentement. They had what do you call it? Mandatory roles. They had to hire 10% of staff who was under such age. Then after 2 years, you couldn't take out currency. You needed that exit control pass, which would be controlled at the border with silly Belgium. We're not talking about Qatar or something. This is to go any place, 5,000 francs a year. I mean, there is a past of going crazy with Keynesian solutions, which he probably remembers and probably will try to avoid, because it was pretty bad.
I think he will try to avoid it. I think, you know, the one phrase you kept seeing in the press over the past few days is the old song. You know, only Nixon could go to China, only Hollande can go to Brussels, or only Hollande can go to Berlin. It's a cliche because cliches are true, and this may be it. I think what you're clearly seeing now is take Marine Le Pen and her mob, just leave them
The far right.
the far right, just
Send
put
them
them
to
on a
Greece.
boat and send them away. I think you're seeing the
Send them
bulk
to
of
Greece.
France starting to rally around Hollande. I've really sensed this in the street, and I think that's a really good thing. And I thought it was terrific. And a lot of people were really impressed when both of them went on VE Day to place the wreath. It was a
big gesture.
a powerful
Profound.
gesture that perhaps you can only pull off, here in France. But it goes back to this. It's an arithmetic problem, and bless his heart, we all hope he can fix it. But it's not going to be easy.
Okay, that's going to be of course, the problem with the incoming president on the domestic front. Of course, on the foreign front, there'll be Greece, and when we come back, we'll be looking at how Europe is handling the situation there, and we'll also be taking a look at a campaign issue across the Atlantic that surfaced this week. U.S. President Barack Obama in favor of gay marriage. Stay with us.